Hi there, welcome to Boxing Deep Dive. I'm Lyndon Hosking, and this is our weekly show. Now, a little bit of a confession to make here. This is actually our second attempt at recording this show, and you'll notice that I'm on my lonesome. I actually did the show last night with Tszyu Brown, and let's just say we got right to the end of the show, and we had some glitches in the system. It crashed, and the whole show went up in smoke. So rather than just be done with the show, I've decided to do it again. Won't be as good, of course, because how can we not go without Tazzy's input into the show? And I can't actually do it tonight because I will be at the football seeing the Mighty Blues and the Western Bulldogs. So I'm going to put a little bit of maybe a condensed version. I'm going to go through all the stuff. There's been a massive week in Australian boxing. So I'll quickly go over all that and do my best to fill the blanks. Pretty hard to replace Tazzy. There's only one Tszyu Brown, as we all know. Peter's still away at the moment, so it's just me. So a few little alterations, but look, the show must go on, and hopefully I can cover all the boxing news on my lonesome, as I said. So we've got all the Aussie news, a little bit of world news going on. Delve into a little bit of the Hardman Zerafa show coming up. And a couple of talking points I'll talk about as well that I'll just touch on. It's not much fun with talking points when you're talking to yourself, but I'll do my best. So what we're going to do is get straight into all the news of the week. And it's a massive week for Aussie boxing. It's fight week. It is Tim Tszyu versus Terrell Gausha. Massive fight for Australian boxing, and obviously Tim himself, because if he wins his fight, he gets the fight with the winner of Brian Castano and Jamal Charlo. So massive stakes for Tim. He's been over in the States for a week now, or probably 2 weeks closer to the fight. Only been a few days away now. So he's been over there. There's been a lot of stuff on social media from his manager Glenn Jennings, which has been great. Tim himself has been great with the media over there, and it really looks like he's, I said there's a Tazzy in the original version, that he really looks like he's born for this. He's seemed very comfortable over there. He's welcomed the media attention, he's welcomed the fans' attention, and I think he's like a fish to water over there. And it's no wonder that he's already said that if he wins the title, he'd like to go back and defend it in Vegas. I can see where you're coming from, Tim, if you're watching this. I love Vegas myself. I've been there many, many times. I can see why you love the style over there, mate. So look, he's got to obviously get past this one. Terrell Gorsha is a very, very good fighter. He's had the world title fight with Arizona Lara. He's had the draw with Austin Trout as well. So very experienced. Also an Olympian as well. So this guy, if you're wondering about whether to get the fight or not, pay the $59.99, I can tell you, because this is the real deal. This is not Tim going over there and pulling the wool over our eyes and main event as well, taking our money. This guy is a bona fide contender, and Tim has got his work cut out for him. So look, it's going to be massive. I can't wait. We were actually supposed to be over there for this fight, but the way it went down with the dates, even though it was a week, made it really hard for me to get there. Same as Tazzy, I think, as well, was planning to go over. So maybe for the next one, if he does fight for the world title, I can assure you I will definitely be there. I saw today that Shannon O'Connell, the stablemate of Tim, has gone over there with her kids to support for Tim over there, and I'm sure there'll be lots of other Aussie support over there for him as well. So as I said, look, I think it's been great for Tim with his exposure and his profile over in America. The fight itself will be tough, as I said, but I just think him getting over there and getting out of the Australian fishbowl and getting himself known on that American circuit will be fantastic. You actually speak earlier this week. He's at the Mayweather gym doing his training while he was in Vegas, and this is what he had to say in regards to the upcoming fight.
Make their debut to fight in the United States. Is it something that was really important to you?
100%, it's massive, as I say, this is the land of dreams, You make it in America, you make it in the world. And, it's always been a dream of mine to fight here. A new chapter for me. I'm just getting used to this whole process.
Well, of course, the fight that you're going to have has changed around a few times. Thought you were going to fight against Castano for the title, then you were wanting to fight Charlo. That didn't come out because you're fighting each other. I don't want to say settling, but you're fighting Terrell Gausha instead of Minnesota. How has that been, not knowing who exactly you're going to fight and fighting Gausha? Is it change anything with you as far as?
Man, I'm super focused anyway, so I'll fight whoever, whenever, wherever, so it doesn't really matter.
And what do you know about this guy, Terrell, a former Olympian, of course? What do you know? And I mean, obviously not going to give us your game plan, but what kind of things do you see that you think gives you an advantage over
Yeah,
him?
look, he's sharp, he's tricky, he does good, all the things good, super quick as well. I just have to, I have to make it, I want to make it as tough as fight in the office, I'm here to do damage, give damage, and let them know that they're in a world of trouble.
Let them know they're in a world of trouble, and I'm sure he will do that. And you can see a little bit of sparring here from the Mayweather gym. By all reports, Tim ditched it up to his opponent over there. Look, sparring's one thing, in most gyms, not so the Mayweather gym, because as they call it over there, it's the doghouse. You get in there and you're in a fight. There's none of this, touch gloves and let's look after each other. They yell, they scream, they barrack. I've seen it myself. It's pretty daunting over there. So I can just imagine what Tim was doing over there. But look, he's taken it like a trooper. And as I said earlier, I just think he's a natural for this big time world boxing. So the best of luck to Tim this week. Let's just have a little bit of a look at what his opponent Terrell Gorsha had to say. It's a little bit hard with the audio there, but you can get the gist of it anyway.
To, I don't want to say expose, but to show from Tim Tszyu come fight night.
And looks like we're having a little bit of trouble with that there. Sometimes this does happen, but that's okay. We'll move on there. But what he was sort of saying is that, he's been in big fights before. He's not scared of the reputation of Tim Tszyu. He's been in there with some very good fighters. He's actually knocked out some good fighters as well. So, yeah, look, I've said it a couple of times, a massive test for Tim, but I'm really glad that he's gone over there and taken this type of fight. I mean, being the number one ranked challenger, he could have easily have just either laid low and not fought at all, or take a soft touch back here in Australia, or even go to America and fight a soft touch. So I'd take my hat off to Tim that's gone over there and said, no, I'm not going to do that. Like his dad. His dad never, ever shirked a fight. So yeah, good on Tim for that. So that's this week. Main Event TV, it's on Sunday, May 27th, $59.95. It's on KO and Main Event. So make sure you get on there and support him, because as I said earlier, this is not them trying to pull the wool over our eyes. This guy is a legitimate opponent. If Tim fights, he'll be back there probably later in the year to fight the winner of Charlo and Castano. So it's massive stakes for Tim, and we send all our best wishes to him and Glenn Jennings and Igor and all the team over there. Even poor old Ben Damon and Jeff Fennick are over there in the freezing cold at the moment with the snow. Shout out to those guys taking hit for the team. So all the best again to Tim Tszyu. Let's get on to some other news of the week. This was a very, very controversial one. It was last Saturday night's fight between Billy Dib and Jacob NG. Billy Dib got the win by disqualification. That did not go down well in the first grab that we did of this show with Taszyu. Taszyu was actually in the corner on the night with Billy Dib. He said it got very hairy before the fight, during the fight, and especially after the fight. Look, it just happens at boxing. Everyone gets highly emotional. The circumstances there, obviously Jacob NG's supporters didn't agree with the decision. Billy Dib, his followers there, of course, weren't happy of what the antics were from Jacob. So it was just a bit of a perfect storm of that happening. And Taszyu said, at the end himself and Willis Mean actually had to do a little bit of peacekeeping there to keep everyone at bay. And it's a little bit of a shame because, it was Angelo DiCarlo and Ace Boxing's first big show here at the casino. Massive event. Obviously, it's on beIN Sports as well, which was great. So I was disappointed in the way the fight ended. I thought the fight itself, Jacob NG won 3 of the first 4 rounds quite comfortably. Even the one that Billy Dib won might have even gone to Jacob. So I thought he was well on top. However, in the 5th round, I distinctly remember that Billy Dib got away from what you can see here of being on the ropes and trying to be on the outskirts and boxing Jacob. He actually stood his ground in round 5 and actually gained the momentum back. And I was really intrigued to see what would happen after that 5th round, because you could see that Jacob was feeling the pace of it. It's not just physical, it's mental as well. And Billy Dib's been in many, many big fights. I thought that he was just starting to maybe rattle Jacob NG a little bit. As I said, I definitely thought Jacob NG was well in front. But the 5th round I definitely gave to Billy Dib. He stood his ground. He backed Jacob NG up. And then even at the start of the 6th round was the same before this happened. So it was really intriguing. And as I said, I really felt for Angelo and Ace Boxing, because this was a great event. The undercard was great, and we'll go over that in a second as well. But I hope the casino and BN Sports cool down over all this and the back, because it was a great inlet for Ace Boxing to get into. But you can see here, Jacob NG pushing the pace. Billy Dib was, to me, looking to also start to feel the pace around this time. But in the next round, this round here, round 5, I really thought he started to find his range, find his second wind, and just start to back Jacob up, and also at the start of the 6th. So we'll see the highlights of the 6th round in a second here. There has been a lot of people say that what happened was sort of contributed to by Billy Dib, but getting in close, and you'll see it in a second here, but getting in close, and all Jacob NG did was pretty much stand up, and Billy Dib hit the deck. I don't see that. You can see here that he actually picks him up and dumps him, which is just not on. And look, as much as I'm disappointed for Jacob NG and his crew, the officials had no other option but to disqualify him. Billy Dib could not continue by the rules. That is a foul. It's a DQ for Billy Dib, and I can see why Jacob NG and his supporters would be unhappy about it. At the end of the day, as I said, that's the rules. You can see here he picks him up and dumps him on his back. Now, and it has been, of course, the usual people out there on social media saying that he dogged it and he played it up and that sort of stuff. But I mean, that he's hit the deck pretty hard, and we'll see a little bit of a grab from him in a minute here about his take on it. I will say the really disappointing thing about the fight for me, other than the result itself, was the fact that I don't think, and I'll be careful what I say here, and Taszyu couldn't say it because he's obviously in the corner and very close. I myself, I was very disappointed in both boxers, not the teams, the boxers themselves. I thought that Jacob NG ragdolled Billy Dib as much as he could. He pushed his head down, he threw him around. Billy Dib, on the other hand, continuously punched after the breaks, continuously punched after the bell, to the point where both fighters probably should have had points taken off. And worst of all in all this, I think, was the referee. I think, again, I hate to point the finger at officials, but at the end of the day, the referee had absolutely no control of this fight. He let them get away with murder, even to the point where, when I think Billy Dib first got into the ring, Jacob NG and him actually interacted with each other. That would have been the ideal point for me, where referee, I think it was Steve Marshall, to pull both boys in or go to the individual corners and say, I'm not going to be putting up with any bullshit tonight. Go by the rules, or I'm going to come down. Right from the word go, the boys did whatever they pleased. And it was pretty obvious right from the word go, the referee couldn't or wouldn't do anything to get control of the fight. And I think that was the biggest disappointment for me, to the point where Jacob NG thought what he did at the end was acceptable. And obviously it wasn't. So disappointing. As I said, both fighters I don't think should put themselves in the best of light. Billy Dib, I think, did it because he's an experienced hand. He's been around a long time. He was trying all those tricks to unsettle Jacob NG. Jacob NG, I think, was just a bit of immaturity, a bit of inexperience. Was trying to go with Billy, and either way, neither one was better than the other. I was really disappointed in both, but as I said, more disappointed in the fact that referee Steve Marshall didn't have control. And the odd thing is that Philip Holliday was the undercard referee. He refereed most of the undercard and did a great job. He's very stern. He's obviously been in big fights himself. I was surprised, and I suppose a little bit disappointed in hindsight, that he didn't get the job, because there's no way that he would have let both those guys do what he did. But the good thing is, Billy Dib will probably go on to some bigger things now. I really hope there's a rematch. But if not, I'm sure Billy Dib will get another big fight out of it. Jacob NG, in my opinion, loses nothing out of this fight. Yes, it's a loss on his record. It's got an asterisk beside it, of course. I don't think this will do anything. It might set him back 3 to 6 months or whatever it might be as far as ratings or other fights, whatever. But I really don't think it'll affect him too much. He's young. He'll come back. He'll learn from the experience. And I think he's going to be a very, very good fighter. I really like his style. I like the fact he's obviously so tall. I like the way he hunts the guys down. He puts really good combinations together. He can take a punch, as we saw against Hunter Anui. Or in a way, I think his name was. So, I think with this experience, I think he'll learn from. He's got to keep his composure. And I think he'll get a lot out of the fight. And I think he'll come back bigger and better as well. So, let's hope we see a rematch. It'd be great to see. I'm sure all Aussie boxing fans want to see it. So, let's hope that Ace Boxing can put it together. We'll say at the time of the stoppage, or the disqualification, Phil Gregory and Adam Hite both had Jacob NG 3 rounds to 2, which is the way I had it as well. Interesting that the other judge had it 50-45, so he couldn't give Billy Dib a round, which really surprised me because, as I said, I thought the first 4 might have maybe all gone to Jacob NG bar 1, but I definitely think the 5th round was Billy Dib's round. So, yeah, surprising there. Not that it mattered in the end anyway. Billy Dib moves to 48-6, Jacob NG 15-1, but as I said, I really don't think it will affect his career at all. Before we move on, let's have a little bit of a look at a video of Billy. There's obviously a photo of him in hospital. You can see there he had a dislodged rib and 2 fractures of the rib. So you can't make that stuff up. You know, you can't play that you've got dislodged ribs or fractured ribs, and the fact he was in hospital overnight showed that it was pretty serious. And I will say again, I don't think Jacob NG had any malice. I don't think he intentionally decided to wanted to hurt Billy Dib. It was just a brain fade at the moment where he thought it'd be a bit of a smart-ass move to pick him up and dump him on his back. Obviously, it's backfired. Billy Dib's been injured and he's been disqualified. So, as I said, under no circumstances am I implying that Jacob NG was trying to be dirty or hurt Billy. It was just one of those things that happened. Let's go for a video, look at a video of the next day. Our good mate, Nick, at Noonan Boy Promotions, interviewed Billy the next day. I hope he doesn't mind us stealing his video, but this is what he had to say.
How you feeling?
I feel good, man. Look, at the end of the day, what happened, and I'm just glad to be out of the hospital now, back with my family. I sustained a serious injury, dislodged rib, which caused 3 fractures in my chest right here. So I'm dealing with a bit of pain. Got my arm in a sling to just deal with the pain, but I'm okay.
You went to hospital straight after the fight. You didn't come out to 2 p.m. today. They ran some other tests as well. The brain scans as well?
Yeah, they ran some MRI scans and stuff. They feel that I might have suffered a minor concussion from the throwdown. Because when I hit the floor, I actually hit it on my back, but then my head hit the floor as well. So, and I've been feeling really nauseous since last night. So they thought that maybe I had suffered a light concussion.
Yeah, so there's the word from Billy himself. They thought he might have had a minor concussion, which is understandable. If you have a look at the video, he did actually hit his head on the canvas. But I think the main concern was the fact he landed on that hip. And I'm pretty sure he's actually had some history with hip injuries in the past as well. So that would have played a factor in it. So I think, look, again, I think the best thing to do is to match these guys up again. Let's see who's the better man. I think it was, while it was a poor night in some ways for Australian boxing with the way it went down, it was a great night in another sense that we had two great Aussie boxers, one up and coming, one who's in the twilight of their career looking for another shot. So I think Aussie boxing was the winner and loser on the night. I'll let you make your aspersions on that one. Let's get on to the undercard, and it was another great event by Ace Boxing. In my opinion, it was headlined by this guy, Ty Telford. I know he wasn't the co-main event on the night, but I'm so impressed with this guy. He's had a couple of rough runs. He had the draw against Brubacher. Jack Brubacher. I really thought he won that fight clearly on the night. I thought he was ripped off badly, and I think it just had a little bit maybe to do that Jack Brubacher was maybe in line to fight Tim Tszyu. Ty Telford was a late replacement and came in and probably wasn't given much chance at all. I thought he really dished it up to Brubacher that night and deserved the win. Had another chance against Darragh Foley. Lost a very close decision. Just in my humble opinion, I actually thought he won that fight as well. I know a lot of you will not agree with that, and that's fine. I think it was a close fight, but in my mind, I actually thought he got the win narrowly that night over Darragh Foley. But what I like about him is he didn't sulk, he didn't go into his shell, he didn't take easy fights. He looks to me the type of fighter. I've never met him, by the way, but he's like, okay, well, now that one door closed, another one opens, let's go. I'm a fighter, and I just want to fight. And I think he took that frustration out, unfortunately, on Tyson Best, because it was a brutal 2 rounds, and I have a lot of respect for Tyson Best. I've seen him fight many times. He's a really good, tough young kid. Comes to fight, and I was actually really excited about this fight. But Ty Telford put him away in 2 rounds. Just beautiful combination punching, beautiful power punching, and when he had him in trouble, did not let him off the hook. And I will say a fantastic stoppage by Philip Holiday, who knew that Tyson Best was in trouble. He didn't go down or anything like that, but again, being an elite fighter himself and probably been in those circumstances himself, he knew the signs that Tyson was in trouble, jumped in and saved Tyson Best from more damage, and I thought it was a brilliant stoppage. So Philip Holiday, if you're watching this, you're probably not, but hats off to you, because you did a great job and saved Tyson for another day. So I'm really hoping that this bloke Ty Telford goes on to some bigger fights. I think he's definitely capable of getting out of the Australian bubble and going to regional, maybe world level, who knows. I would love to see him fight a guy like a Stevie Spark. I think that would be one of my Aussie wish list fights. Look, it's probably not going to happen, because Stevie Spark's gone down to super lightweight, which I think is a very good move. He had the win over Jack Brubacher, but I think even though he won convincingly, he had to box a lot more, because Brubacher was probably a little bit bigger and stronger than what he was, so he had to box a bit more. Just disregard the Tim Tszyu fight. I think he took that, 2 weeks notice, went up to super welterweight. So he was, normally he fights at 64 kilos. He fought at 72 kilos. That's an 8 kilo swing to Tim. So then we can disregard that one. So I think he'll stay at super lightweight. However, if he did have that inkling to go back up to welterweight, I would love him to jump in with this guy, Ty Telford. It would be, as I said, one of the top fights I would love to see in domestic boxing. So enough of the Ty Telford love fest. Let's move on. The other undercard, this was the co-main event. It was Blake Minto and Justin Frost. Blake Minto got the decision. 96-94. Frost actually was winning on one card. 97-93 for the other card for Minto, which is the way I had it. And the other judge had it 96-94 for Minto as well, which is around the mark. So I've got to say I was a little bit surprised with Justin Frost. I've seen him fight a few times. I'm not sure whether maybe he'd been sick in the lead up or hadn't had the best camp, or obviously just met a better opponent on the night, but he looked pretty flat to me. Congratulations to Blake Minto, who fought a really, really good fight, coming off a loss to Jacob NG. Again, he could have taken an easy fight, but he stepped up the fight. It's a very good fighter in Justin Frost and took it right up to him, and I thought was very, very dominant. But as I said, I just thought Justin Frost was just a bit off on the night. He just didn't seem himself, flat, lethargic, and so maybe, look, it might be a sign that his career might be coming to an end as well, because in this sport, if you're not as motivated as you should be, you get found out pretty quickly, and unfortunately you don't know you're at the end until it's too late when you're in there and there's another opponent trying to take your head off. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope Justin's back, but yeah, I thought Blake won that very convincingly. On the other undercard fight of the night I thought was really good was Vegas Larfield. Went to 5-0 with a shutout win over Luke Martin, 99-90 times 2 and a 98-91. I probably had it 99-90, or I mean, you could even make a case for a shutout. to be honest, all 10 rounds. But he retained the Australasian and Australian featherweight titles. Martin dropped to 1-5, which I think is a little bit misleading. He's been in there with some pretty tough guys, gave them all big fights. He's had a couple of close losses as well, so don't be misled by that 1-5. He was a tough kid, or a tough guy. It really gave Vegas Larfield a really good workout, or a good fight, I should say. So I'm sure Vegas, look, he's only a kid. He's got a long way to go. He's managed by one of the best in the business in Tony Tolge. So I'm sure he'll get plenty of opportunities. He has great sparring and all that, with twins and many others. So I think he'll get some opportunities as well. So no rush. I think he's, as I said, he's 5-0 now. I would think they'll nurse him through to maybe another 10 fights before they'll even look at starting to step him up to a more sort of higher grade of opposition. So again, a great young kid. On to some news that actually happened last night as of this recording. It was Sonny Bill Williams absolutely demolished Barry Hall with a first round knockout. Now I must admit, I didn't see this coming. We did discuss this in our first take on this show. We both actually went for Sonny Bill Williams, but I don't think we actually saw this coming because Barry Hall's a big, tough guy. He's been around the traps a long time, and Sonny Bill Williams didn't look very good in his last fight. He actually got dropped. So we thought it might have been a pick-em fight, but absolutely took Barry Hall to pieces, or cut him to pieces in that first round with the first round knockout. Let's have a bit of a look at the highlights here. And you can see the size difference. I actually thought Barry Hall would have been the bigger man, but Sonny Bill definitely was the bigger and stronger man on the night. And there's a knockout punch there. There was 2 knockdowns before this happened. But yeah, and Danny Green in the commentary, was just amazed. He was obviously the promoter of the fight, and in his words, he absolutely smoked him. And it's hard to argue. Barry Hall, right from the word go, just wasn't in the fight. And I really felt for Barry because I think, he's had a bit of a malign career in the football, and I think he had the disputed decision against Gallen, which I thought he won clearly, by the way. But I don't think he expected what actually came at him in Sonny Bill Williams. I think he expected maybe a couple of rounds of feeling out. And from what I actually heard was that Barry was going to be the one to put it on Sonny Bill Williams and really make him work for it. But Sonny Bill just came out and just cut loose, and Barry had no answer. And I did say this to Tszyu as well. There's a little bit of conjecture out there with Barry Hall's background in boxing. Now, the press love to talk about these sorts of things, and he was the next champion in waiting, and as a kid, and he was going to be this, going to be that. You've got to remember, he only had 6 amateur fights as a young teenager. That's not a big boxing background. So you can dispel that myth that Barry's had this massive boxing background. So I think the ones that say, he's been beaten by a novice in Sonny Bill Williams, I actually think Sonny Bill Williams had a lot more, in fact, he had a lot more experience than Barry Hall. There's a lot more fights. He's fought, he had a win over Franz Botha, who's fought Tyson and Bo and Lewis and all these types of Holyfield. He's fought all those guys, and Sonny Bill beat him, even though he was washed up. Sonny Bill still beat him. Barry Hall, his only professional fight was against Paul Gallen. That was 2 years ago. And as I said, he only had 6 amateur fights as a young kid. So don't worry about what the media say about Barry Hall having this extensive boxing background, because he didn't. He might have done it in the shed and the football training and that sort of stuff, but that's not real boxing experience. So go a little bit easy on Barry. I hope he retires now. He's 45 years of age. He's had a taste of it. He's probably made some good money. So look, I fully respect Barry, and anyone for that matter, for getting in the ring and putting on the line, putting in the work and getting in there, because knowing what it takes to get in there, even at an amateur level, these guys are in front of 5,000 people. It takes a lot, not a ticker. It's one thing to run out on the ground with an AFL team when you've got 17 other mates running along with you, and your opponents are probably a lot smaller. But when you're in there in front of all those people, and there's only one person in there to help you out, and that's a referee, if you're in trouble, I take my hat off to Barry and wish him all the best. As I said, I hope that's it for him. I hope he goes on to bigger and better things, and maybe stays involved in the sport. He's on a good wicket up there with in the gym with the Maloney boys up there. Probably good for him to be around those guys and all the other fighters in the gym. So hopefully he stays in the sport in some capacity, just not maybe in the ring. So, and as for Sonny Bill Williams, well, who knows? He's 36 years of age. Everyone knows he's been training with Andy Lee, and who's Tyson Fury's trainer, and obviously Tyson Fury himself. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him, whether he takes it to the next level or is happy just to take the Gallen fight, make some good coin and get out. It'll be interesting to see. Definitely makes sense for him to fight Paul Gallen next, because there's probably a couple of $1 million payday in it for both of them. So full respect to those guys for getting the money. And there has been a lot of things said on social media too. It was a farce and it was a joke and all that sort of stuff. I don't see it that way. I've been a big critic of all the YouTube fights and a lot of the football fights and that sort of stuff. I don't see it with these two guys. I think I said that when the fight was first announced. These are two guys who are very, very well prepared. They went in with an 8 by 3 minute round fight, so a real fight. None of these 3-2s or 6-1s or whatever the hell they fight these days. This was a real fight. This was different. So I think just be respectful to both guys. They went in there. It's a business after all. It's professional boxing. They both made some good money. And I do not, under any circumstances, put into the same category as some of these other ridiculous fights that I've seen lately with the football and YouTube. So, so take it for what it is. Sonny Bill, first round knockout. Good on him. And as I said, best of luck to Barry. Some other news, big news in the last day or two has been the announcement that it looks like George Kambosos will fight Devin Haney in Melbourne on June 5 in a massive stadium event. It looks like being Marvel Stadium in Melbourne in Victoria. If you're in a state or overseas and you don't know the stadium, it's a brilliant place to have a fight. They've had UFC there before. They normally get about just over 50,000 for the football. So if they had the ring on the oval and seats around, they probably get up to about 70 to 80,000. Not going to get that, of course, but still a great place. They can do it then. This is the middle of winter for us. And if you're from Victoria and especially Melbourne, you know how cold and wet it can get around that time of year. So they've got the retractable roof, so it'll be great. Costa Tszyu actually fought there back in 2003 against Jesse James Leha. I think they had 30-odd thousand there for that from memory. So there is a little bit of conjecture about how many they'll get there. I personally think if it was the Lomachenko fight, they might have got more, but Devin Haney, the fight makes sense. If he agrees to terms, well, it does. It makes sense for him to jump in. The reason why Devin Haney has actually been elevated to the position to fight George now is that Lomachenko has made a very noble decision to stay in his homeland of Ukraine and fight the war against Russia. So he did have permission to leave the country and come to Australia to prepare, but like Alexander Usyk as well, and as well as the Klitschko's, he's decided to stay in Ukraine and defend his country. So full respect, and George himself has actually said that about Vasily Lomachenko, that hey mate, the fight will still be there down the track. You go do what you got to do, and hopefully we can get it on later, maybe later in the year. So yeah, as I said, it looks like Devin Haney has got the gig. I myself aren't overly excited about it. I think it is the right fight to be made, by the way, but I am finding it at this stage hard to get excited about. I am excited about the fact that George is actually going to have this bigger fight pretty much in my backyard, but the Haney thing, he's not an overly exciting fighter. I know it's for all the belts and that's great, but I don't know. Hopefully, it'll get a bit more entertaining as we get closer to it. But hopefully, the announcement will be on hand pretty soon. George actually did an interview yesterday again with Nick from Noonan Boy Promotions. Again, Nick, I'm sorry, mate, for continuing to steal your videos. But he caught up with him in the last day or so, and this is what he had to say to Nick. If I can get it there. Oh, there it is. Sorry, I'll get it up there. There it is.
Around Devin Haney sort of on this TikTok. We've spoken personally about this. George, is it true he's got 3 days? He's got the same deal. We don't want to harp too much on Lomachenko. This is about Devin Haney and the future now. Has he got 3 days with the same deal?
I believe so, yeah. Look, Blue DeBella is sorting all that out. And he said that he will take the same deal as Lomachenko. Did he not? He went out and said the same thing once he felt the heat that the Loma fight was getting close. So be a man of your word. For whatever reason, you and your fans think that I was avoiding you. Never the case. I fight any man. I fight you right now if you want. And you know what it is. The deal was there. You saw it today on social media as well. Eddie Hearn went out and said it, that the offer's been made. They're going to look at it. and make it happen. So it shouldn't be a problem. Be a man of your word, and I'll see you in Melbourne.
So there you go. You got to love his attitude. I mean, I know I've become a bit of a George Kambosos fanboy, but I just love the fact he's so sure of himself. He wants the big fights, and he's worked his ass off to get where he is. And he did say in that interview as well, he's just opened a new gym up there rather than go out and buying Ferraris and everything else. He's and gold jewelry. He's opened himself up a gym, so a real role model for not just Aussie boxers, but I think any young boxer around the world. That if you believe in yourself and you work hard and don't take any shortcuts, that anything is possible. And probably put him in a little bit of the category of one of our female greatest athletes, Ash Barty, who retired yesterday, along the same lines. Just good Aussie people who have worked hard against the odds. And I've taken no shortcuts anywhere in their career, and they've got everything that's coming to them. So if it is Devin Haney, again, wish George all the best. I'm sure he'll prepare, and I think he's the type of fighter that doesn't matter if he's got the belts. He'll work just as hard. I mean, the old saying is that the hard work is actually getting to the top of the mountain. It's even harder to actually stay there, and I think George is one of those guys that will work even harder now because he knows all these young fighters are after him, as he calls himself the Emperor, and with good cause as well, because he's got every right to. And hopefully it's a massive crowd there. Look, they are talking about 50, 60, 70,000. We've talked about this on the show many times. Knowing Melbourne the way I do in the fight game and everything else, I've just got a feeling maybe 30. And I say that with all due respect. They'll be fanatical fight fans, don't get me wrong. I'm just not sure whether they'll get the 40, 50, 60,000. I really hope they do. But I'm thinking maybe 30,000 for that one. And again, I hope I'm wrong. Let's go on to some more news, because this weekend it is Ebony Bridges and Skye Nicholson on the world stage. They're both fighting in Leeds, England, on the Kiko Martinez Josh Warrington rematch undercard. Ebony Bridges, and I've got to probably apologise to Ebony. I had apologised to Liam Paro last week because we did a list of all the potential people fighting for world titles this year, and I forgot Liam Paro last week, and I've forgotten Ebony Bridges, who is actually fighting for a world title. So well done to Ebony. She's fighting Maria Cecilia Roman for the IBF World Bantamweight title. Skye Nicholson is fighting a 6-rounder with Beck Connolly. So that's on DAZN, so make sure you check it out. Best wishes to Ebony for the world title fight, and Skye Nicholson is very quick turnaround. She's having her second fight within a couple of weeks. First one was obviously in America. Now she's in England. So doing everything she can to get those rounds in the bank, get the fights under her belt, and I've got a feeling this will take the Ebony Bridges route and probably fight for a world title within 7, 8, 9 fights, I would think. And I think she's more than capable. I think she's a great young talent, and I think with her style and charisma and everything, I think she'll be like Ebony Bridges and get a massive fan base over there in England. And I think she's destined for big things, is Skye Nicholson. But yeah, Ebony Bridges, the spotlight's on you this week, so we wish you all the best from everyone here at Boxing Deep Dive, and I'm sure you'll bring the belt home, and hopefully once you've won the belt, you can fight the likes of a Shannon O'Connell and give Aussie fight fans a massive domestic female fight, which would be absolutely awesome as well. And then you've got Taylor Robinson, Shanika Johnson. You've got all these young girls that are out there that could fight each other. I think it's and Skye Nicholson, of course, down the track. So great times for Aussie female boxing. And just on that, with the world title situation, you can see there, we've got 4 fighters locked in for world title fights. As I said, Ebony Bridges up against Maria Cecilia Roman this weekend in England. That's for the IBF Bantamweight title. Shanika Johnson fights Melissa Esquivel for the IBF Super Bantamweight title on the Zerafa Hardman undercard on April 20th. On May 11th on the Gold Coast, Jaya Pataya Maris Breedis will fight for the IBF Cruiserweight title. So the IBF definitely the flavour of the month with our Aussie fighters at the moment. And of course, the big one there, George Kambosos, Devin Haney for the undisputed lightweight title. That will be June 5, Marvel Stadium in Melbourne. So massive. But the big thing is, you look underneath there, obviously then you've got Tim Tszyu, who obviously if he gets past this one, will fight the winner of Brian Castano and Jamal Charlo. So that'll be for the undisputed super welterweight title. So massive for that one. That will most likely be obviously in the States. The winner of Zerafa and Hardman will fight for the IBF middleweight title, according to promoter Dean Lonigan. So that's an interesting one. And then Liam Paro has been tentatively booked to fight for the WBO super lightweight / junior welterweight world title. And then you've got those three big names underneath. Look at that: Jason Maloney, Andrew Maloney, Shannon O'Connell, all waiting in the wings for world title fights. That could happen at any stage. So just an amazing time for Australian boxing. And I actually said to Tszyu about it that, have you ever seen a time in Australian boxing history? It gets a little bit bent out of shape if I say that it's the best boxing era we've ever had, and that's always debatable. But I don't think you could ever have a time where we've had up to 10 fighters either fighting for world titles or in line to fight for world titles. There's at least 7 that are actually going to happen. 4 that are booked in. The other 3 are based on results. And you've got the Maloney brothers and Shannon O'Connell, who are, as I said, waiting in the wings. And who knows what might happen with some of the other guys out there. So I just think it's an absolutely awesome time for Aussie boxing. They're really starting to take notice overseas. I think you'll find a lot more promoters sniffing around our shores to get their hands on some of our young talent. It's already happening, of course. You've got Eddie Hearn, obviously, with Ebony Bridges, Skye Nicholson, Dempsey McKeon, and I think he's with Matchroom, and also, Brock Jarvis is with Eddie Hearn as well. So, Dempsey McKeon and Liam Paro as well. So they've got promoters as well. So, it's a little bit all over the place with who they're actually with, but you get my gist. So, but look, I think it's only a matter of time, as I said before, other promoters look to our good fighters over here. You've obviously got the Maloney brothers with Top Rank as well. So, so it's all happening. Just a little bit of world news before we move on to the road to Zerafa and Hardman. I found this one interesting. Gennady Golovkin is suing Golden Boy for $3 million. Now, that relates to revenue, sponsorship, and pay-per-view buys for his fight with Canelo Alvarez, the second fight. I think he did receive nearly $10 million from Golden Boy, but apparently there was some payments that were delayed or missed or whatever it was. He's seeking damages for interest and other things as well. So, look, you hate to see this, I must admit, but at the end of the day, it is a business. They're entitled to get what they deserve. They train hard, they work hard, they fight hard, and they give up a lot of their life for this business. So, look, I hope he gets what he deserves. I'm sure there's $3 million in Oscar's glove box and his Ferrari out the front for. So I don't think it's a massive big deal for him, but just interesting that over 3.5 years after the fight, that this is still going on. And on top of that, of course, was Terence Crawford's lawsuit against Top Rank for what he saw as bias and even racism, I think it was as well. So it's a little bit disappointing, but at the end of the day, in this instance, if he deserved the money, hopefully he gets what he's entitled to. All right, well, that brings us to one of the main segments of the week, and it is the road to Zerafa versus Hardman.
All he is all mouth, he's all bark, no bite. And he thinks he's got under my skin. He's just a fool.
No, I just think he's a wanker. He seems fake to me. I don't do fake.
I'm looking forward. I'm counting down. I wish it was tonight because I want to punch his face in.
He seems scripted. It's not genuine, and people see through that shit.
For me, like I said, it's disrespectful. Don't really have much time for him. And I'm quite concerned that the only word he knows is Fleabag.
So there it is, the road to Zerafa versus Hardman. You'll have to forgive me for my slide here. I didn't have time to redo it all. I've pretty much done it the morning after the last one crashed, so just forgive me for that. So what I wanted to do tonight, and I'm really disappointed our last take, we lost because Taszyu gave a rundown. Because what I want to do in this episode was to put the coach's hat on for both of these guys and work out the keys to victory. And what I said to Taszyu was, take off your Team Tszyu shirt, and let's put on the Team Zerafa shirt, and then we'll put on the Zerafa hat as well, and gives a breakdown on what you will be telling these guys opposing each other if you're in their corner. So I'm going to give it a go. For starters, I'm going to start with Michael Zerafa. If I've got the Team Zerafa hat on, I'm telling him to go out there in the first round, be wary, but take control. And what I mean by that is to use his experience. We all know he's been in many big fights. He's had, as you can see there, 33 fights, 29-4 with 18 KOs. Is to go out there and be cool and composed, be alert, be sharp, and just let yourself ease into the fight. Use the jab, use the movement. Isaac Hardman, I think, will probably come out aggressively. First really big main event for Isaac. A lot of pressure. Even though it's not on mainstream TV, there's going to be a lot of people watching this fight. So he's going to come out aggressive. He's very dangerous early, Isaac, with the right hand. His first 3 fights, he won all by first round knockouts in upsets by just starting quickly. He also had the first round knockout of Jamie Weech. So I think he's going to come out and throw some bombs early. And obviously there's been a lot of spite in this fight as well. So if I'm Michael Zerafa's trainer, I'm telling him to be tight, use the jab, movement off to the left, off to the right. Don't stand in front of Isaac, and just let the heat go out of it for a round or two, and then start to pick it up. Start a little bit, probably even like he did against Jeff Horn. Ease himself into the fight, and after about 5 rounds, really start to put the pressure on. Got to remember, Isaac hasn't been in this circumstance before. Yes, he's gone 10 rounds a couple of times, but he hasn't been in a fight of this magnitude. So I think Michael, nice and tight early, nice and sharp. Nice defence, lateral movement, stiff jab, and time up when you need to, ease into the fight, and after about 4 or 5 rounds, start to pick it up, and then finish over the top of Isaac as the fight goes on, and use that experience to get yourself a decision. I'm not sure he can stop Isaac. Isaac is a very, very tough guy. I've seen that coming from the MMA background. So I don't think Michael has got the ability or the punching power to put Isaac away. Anything's possible, of course. This is boxing, but I'd be looking for Zerafa to look at a points decision, take Isaac into deep waters, and finish strongly and win a decision. So that's my take on Michael Zerafa. On the flip side, we've got the head splitter, Isaac Hardman, 12-0 with 10 KOs. I think I said on last week's episode, don't be misled by the fact he's only had 12 fights. In those 12 fights, they've crammed a lot of diverse type of opponents in there, some tough opponents. He hasn't had 10 knockout wins over, as they say, taxi drivers and Uber drivers and everything else. He's had some pretty tough fights early, even going back to his pro debut against Lucas Miller, who's a very, very capable fighter. His next fight was against Matt Sheen, and again, a former amateur Australian champion, international representative. I think he's won a couple of titles since then. Again, a really tough opponent. They were his first 2 fights. So since then, he's fought the likes of Emmanuel Carlos, who I thought was a really, really great prospect. I still think he's got a lot of upside to him, Emmanuel, if he gets himself back on track. But Isaac actually took him apart. They've thrown guys at him like a Robert Berridge, who, yes, it was over the hill, but he's been in a lot of tough fights, had a lot of experience, a tough guy. Just the Mark Lucases of the world, they're throwing all these types of guys at him to give him different types of styles, southpaw, orthodox, aggressive, boxers. So I think they've done a really, really good job of getting those fights into him. So I'm not being misled by the fact he's only had 12 fights compared to Michael Zerafa's 33. And let's not forget, even though he didn't have the amateur background, he's had all those MMA fights as well. So if I'm in the head splitter's corner and I've got one of those nice training tank tops that he likes to sell, I'm telling him to get in Zerafa's face straight away. So it's the opposite of what I would obviously tell Zerafa. I would tell Isaac to go out there, don't get crazy, don't punch yourself out, but you have to make a stance. You have to take center ring, you have to rough him up. Not to the Jacob NG, Billy Dib extent, I will say. We don't want to go down that track. But get in his face, really take centre ring, back Michael Zerafa up. I think Zerafa fights better coming forward, which is odd to say because he's a more of a taller type of boxer with a long reach. But I think he actually fights better when he takes centre ring. I think Isaac has to take centre ring and back Zerafa up. assert control of the centre ring and dominate the fight from there. And again, not punch himself out. Assert control, assert authority in the first 3 or 4 rounds, but leave enough in the tank for when Michael obviously will inevitably come back, and we know he will. So that would be my advice to Isaac. I wouldn't be pushing for the knockout. Again, Michael's got a really good chin. He's got a very good defence. He's got good movement. He's got good movement on his feet. I'm not sure Isaac can actually knock him out unless maybe it's just one of those big shots that come out of nowhere. So I would be telling Isaac to prepare for a really rough and tough 10-round fight. As I say, get in Zerafa's face, rough him up, bang him as much as you can, and of course bowl that right hand over as much as you can as well. So yeah, it's an intriguing one. I think next week I will get Tazzy's take on it. Again, it's really hard to speak about these things when you're by yourself. I wouldn't mind having someone on this side to bounce off, but that's my thoughts anyway. So they're my keys to victory. So for both guys, and as I said, we might get Tazzy's view next week, and even Peter as well. So that's it for this week's episode of Zerafa and Hardman. So I know it's a little bit of a watered down version, but as I said, we'll get the other guys to give their take next week. And just on this Road to Zerafa Hardman segment, what I want to do is actually the week of the fight. I think it's the Wednesday night is the 20th. On the Monday night, we will do a special on this fight. So we'll get as many people on as we can to talk about the fight, break it down, predictions, a bit of the build-up, all that sort of stuff. We'll even see if we can get the boys on at some stage leading up to it. I must admit, I haven't been too stressed about getting them on. They've had plenty of other podcasts and social media channels to be on lately, so we're getting plenty of news out of them. So I don't think they can sort of tell us any more than what they're telling those guys. I would like to actually maybe get them on together. That might be asking a lot, but I am going to ask the question that if they're happy to get them both on maybe a week or so before for a final face-off. Virtual face-off and see what they have to say. But worst case, as I said, on the Monday, which will be the 18th of April, we will have probably an hour-long Hardman Zerafa or Zerafa Hardman special, and we'll break it all down and reveal who we think wins and why. I'm going to just do a couple of talking points, even though it's not much fun, as I said, talking to yourself. We normally got this bloke on my, this side, Tazzy. I've put him in there in spirit only, Grant Tazzy Brown. But yeah, it's a little bit hard without him here. But I'm going to touch on a couple of points. I'm going to leave his image there and go on with it anyway. The sanctioning bodies have done it again. And what I mean by that is, and it probably actually affects one of our fighters in Liam Paro. And I love Liam Paro and he deserves his chance, but this is not on him. The fact that looks like he's going to fight Teofimo Lopez, which will be a massive fight for him, especially after the Cambosis saga we've had as well. To have Liam Paro now step up and take on Lopez would be great. But the issue I've got is that Lee Cattrall that lost to Josh Taylor has been demoted to number 3, and I just don't agree with it. The WBO are looking after Teofimo Lopez. Cattrall won that fight easily, in my opinion. He should be ranked number 1. He should be fighting Liam Paro for the WBO title. It's as simple as that. Lopez hasn't had a fight at super welterweight or super lightweight or / junior welterweight yet. I understand he's a former undisputed champion, and those types of guys might get a little bit of a leg up. But Liam Paro should be fighting Cattrall for the world title. It's as simple as that. I'm not quite sure what's happening with the other sanctioning bodies, but the fact they've demoted him to number 3, even though he lost that fight, if they had any integrity of the WBO, they'd be saying, don't worry about losing, because I know that's what happens. You lose your number 1 challenger, you lose, you get demoted. I understand that, but the circumstances, they should keep him at number 1, or worst case number 2, have him fight for Liam Paro for the WBO title. Just my opinion. Again, it's always great to have someone else to bounce these things off. This bloke here, the Shadow Grant Tazzy Brown, I can't wait for his opinion next week, because I'm just sick of it. It happens all the time, I know. This is boxing, it's a business. But in this instance here, it's poor by the WBO. So hopefully something will come there, and maybe Cattrall will get an opportunity to fight for another belt. The other one I wanted to talk about before we end the show, this is more just having a bit of a poke of fun at Tazzy, because I know he'll get rolled up about it. Which one would you prefer? And I'm interested to see maybe what you guys think about it out there. Which one is the bigger fight? George Kambosos, Devin Haney for the undisputed lightweight title at Marvel Stadium, or Tim Tszyu versus the Charlo Castano winner for the undisputed super welterweight title in Las Vegas, let's say? And I was going to ask him, which one do you think's the bigger fight? I know it's a question he probably won't want to answer, and it's impossible to answer because they're two massive fights. But it's just interesting and great for Australian boxing that we've got these two guys. We know George Kambosos will be fighting for the undisputed title, but the fact we might have Tim Tszyu fighting for the undisputed world title as well. One in front of maybe 30,000, 40,000 in Melbourne. The other in front, probably, who knows, the MGM Grand or wherever it might be. It might even be New York, who knows. But the fact that both guys might be fighting for undisputed world titles, I think it's just awesome for boxing. I was really interested to see what Tszyu would have to say. I know he'd probably sit on the fence and say they're as good as each other, but end of the day, it's a talking point. So interesting to see what you guys have to say as well. So I'm going to leave it at that. That's about it. I'm do apologise that it's only me for this one. It's been a little bit of work without anyone else to bounce these things off. But it was either that or nothing this week, and we put too much work into the show just to have nothing. So I hope you enjoyed it. I really appreciate you watching. I hope you give us some feedback. Don't forget, soon we've got the Talking Boxing show launching. If you haven't seen us talking about that, that is where we plan on doing a live show. Probably on a Monday night. I think we're going to do it for an hour where we'll jump on and invite you guys on to come on and chat about whatever you want to chat about. A link will go up. You can click on the link, you'll go into a waiting room so we can bring you in and take you out. And whether it's just with me or Taszyu might come in, Peter might come in, Mike Altura might come in. Come on, have your say, and love to hear what you guys have to say. We all see all the social media channels, and everyone loves to have their say and everyone has an opinion. Well, here's your chance to come and actually talk about it. So it's not really talkback radio as such, it's talkback YouTube or Facebook or whatever you're going to watch it on. So keep a lookout for that. We're just sort of getting that going. We've had a little bit on the last few weeks, so that will be out soon and plenty to talk about. Another thing I'd like to do is even have the Talking Boxing after a big fight, so we can discuss it pretty much straight afterwards and have your say. And who knows, we might even do a like they do in some of the football channels, a watch along. Who knows? But it's unlimited what we can do. So keep a lookout for that. I mentioned last week I'm off to New York in June for the International Boxing Hall of Fame induction as well. Really looking forward to that. Over to the States probably again in September. Hopefully it's for Tim Tszyu's fight. If not, it'll be Canelo and maybe Triple G. So plenty going on, and the plan is to obviously take the show on the road, send all the footage back, do some daily updates, and really try and expand the show. But if you've got any suggestions or feedback, we'd love to hear it. We want this show for you guys. There are plenty of shows out there that do plenty of interviews and cover that sort of stuff. We really want to get you guys involved and have your input on what's going on. So look forward to next week. Hope you enjoyed the show, and look forward to having Taszyu and Peter back next week. So until then, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you then.